So, what exactly is going on with men? What is the deal? What's the problem? So, just a few days ago, a man unalived his wife because she made the horrible suggestion of changing the TV channel. The dysregulation among emotional dysregulation among a large group of men, a lot of men, especially since the pandemic, the dysregulation is out of control. The the man problem though is more than emotional dysregulation. I was watching Dean Withers yesterday. I'm sure a lot of you know who that is. Young guy has a ton to say about male female dynamics, but obviously coming from a more political perspective. But yesterday, there was a guy that called in to the live to, tell him why he supports Trump. And the conversation went towards what Trump said on the Howard Stern show. I don't know if you guys have heard what Donald Trump said years ago on the Howard Stern show. Let me see if I could actually get the quote. What did Donald Trump say on the Howard Stern show about being able to go backstage at pageant events? Because here's the thing. The caller asserted that Donald Trump had the right to go backstage because he was the owner of Miss Teen USA. He said that I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant. And in that interview, he did not mention Miss Teen USA specifically or talk about the ages of the contestants, but that's what he was talking about. So he went into the dressing room area. This is, again, not contested. Well, I take that back. It was massively contested yesterday, even though from Donald Trump's own mouth, this is what he said on Howard Stern show, that he is allowed to go into the dressing room area, and he was talking about, they were referring to the Miss Teen USA pageant. So he knowingly went into the backstage area where they are changing, where they are nude. And here's the thing. That's not okay for any man to do, regardless of ownership. Now, the Trump supporter asserted that because he's the owner, he absolutely has that right. So one of Dean's moderators, Dean Withers, one of his moderators in this live, mentioned that he worked at a male entertainment club and that even the male managers were not allowed in the dressing room. They were not allowed. They were not permitted back there, regardless of the fact that they were the managers, and the owners were also not allowed to go back there. Now, if a male manager or male owner did go back there, he's actually breaking the law. Now, should anybody take action? That's an entirely different conversation. And one of the assertions that the young man, the young Trump supporter, called into Dean Withers said that because that this is their job, they shouldn't have any reason to report. They shouldn't have any reason to feel uncomfortable by men watching them be naked. Now, any reasonable person, any reasonable man should be able to look at that situation and be like, that's messed up. Because when it was put into the context of his mom, like for instance, the caller, the young man, the Republican, the young Trump supporter's mom, dressing in a dressing room, under those circumstances, he was uncomfortable with the idea of a man going back there and watching. That made him uncomfortable. But because Donald Trump is the owner of the pageant, he saw no issue and also did not concede that Donald Trump in the Howard Stern interview, where he explicitly said, I am allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant. He refused to believe that to be the case. And he argued it. He argued it in so many different ways. And then he said that those are the rules. Those have always been the rules. And that he could prove it. So Dean and his team kept asking him to present the proof. At no point did he. Because there is no proof. Right now, men are so dysregulated. Not just young men. I'm 46. Men my age, men older than me, are massively dysregulated, both right and left. But a lot of the aggression is absolutely coming from the right. I'm an independent. I'm not Democrat or Republican. I'm independent. But the extreme amount of vile distaste, even hatred towards men, towards women by men, is palpable. You can feel it. And what's really happening here goes way beyond male-female dynamics. We're seeing the last gasp of patriarchy. Patriarchy in the United States does not exist the way that it used to and will never exist the way it used to again, let's say post-World War II until right now. The idea of a middle class, which is what supported patriarchy, without a real middle class, patriarchy would have never existed. Men would have never been able to be the breadwinners. They would not have been able to take care of the household while the wife stays home, taking care of the home, taking care of the children, taking care of the man. Before I go further, right now in South Korea, I don't know if y'all follow the politics in South Korea right now, but the birth rate in South Korea, I'm sorry, I'm looking for it, is extremely low. It's 0.6%, 0.7%, sorry, of South Korean women are having children. In South Korea, when women get married, they still work, but they still have to take care of the household, and they basically take care of the man. Not basically, that's like part of the job. And they're saying no. And the birth rate in South Korea is the lowest it's been, and it's probably not going to go back up because they're saying no. South Korean women are saying, no, we are not going to be baby makers. We want our bodies. We want our ability to make money because you're not going to do it for us, and you can't make enough. In fact, we could probably make more than you. And here in the United States, you're seeing a lot of the same thing. That women are starting to out-earn men, get better jobs, be better at their jobs. For instance, the best surgeons in the United States are women, not men. The idea that men are superior is made up by men. And just to clarify the middle class, the existence of the middle class, and now the non-existence of the middle class as we knew it went away in 1988 or thereabouts because Ronald Reagan, Republican President Ronald Reagan, lowered the tax rate to 28% on the rich. And after World War II, it was in the 90 percentile. And what was designated as the rich was also a lower threshold. So the amount of rich people being taxed a large amount of their income, the majority of their income, because that was the cost of doing business in the United States before Ronald Reagan, that allowed for socialism, American socialism. The middle class was based on American socialism. So if you are a supporter of the middle class, then you are a supporter of socialism. Full stop. Because it was the tax rate on the rich post-World War II until 1980 that allowed men to be able to make the breadwinner money and keep the women at home. By the way, society in the United States was created by men for men. And that's not a question. That's a fact. The economy, the mills, the factories. By the way, when the Industrial Revolution began, it got rid of the need for strong men. The fact of the matter is, women could have thrived at the mills, at the factories. So men who say, well, we're stronger, we get more done, we're smarter, we're more regulated. All of those things are categorically and empirically wrong. Like, there's zero proof that's actually true. And yet men are allowed to believe that because patriarchy still exists, even though the middle class does not. I do not believe that there is a true middle class in the United States anymore because the tax rate on the rich, which allowed the middle class to exist, I believe in the 70s, it was still in the 70 percentile. What was the tax rate on the rich post-World War II until now? The tax rate on the rich literally was American socialism. That's why men had control. Here's the problem, and it's a big problem. Men don't have control anymore because they can't contribute enough money to justify women staying home. They can't make enough money to truly be the breadwinner. Men are not contributing enough to be head of households like patriarchy allowed them to be for decades. And just for clarity's sake, let's just look at this. Right here. Well, you can't see it. In 1945 to 1963, the tax rate on the rich was 91%. 91%. That's why the middle class existed. Between 1964 and 1980, it peaked and stayed around or hovered around 70%. And this was a high growth era. That's when a lot of unions were becoming stronger. There was rising productivity in the United States. All of those things existed because of American socialism, the tax rate on the rich. And I would love anybody to challenge me on that. We can go anytime, any place, make a date. Don't be late. In 1981, Ronald Reagan's trickle-down economics kicked in. Now, first of all, we had true trickle-down before Reagan. In fact, that's how the middle class existed. The tax on the rich financed the middle class. When Reagan dropped the tax on the rich, it went from 70% to 50%. That's a 20% cut on taxing the rich. It was unprecedented in modern history. By 1987 to 1992, it dropped again to 28%. And then by 1993, Clinton raised it back up to 39.6%. Under the George W. Bush, it was 35%. Obama got it to 39.6%. So historically, Democrats, I'm an independent, not Republican or Democrat. I'm independent thinking. I independently create my own reality. I'm a fourth grade dropout. I did not go to school. I do not have a high school diploma. I obviously did not go to college. And yet Democrats are responsible for the higher tax on the rich, which was at least a small attempt to get back to American socialism. And I'm going to keep saying that, by the way, because I know a lot of people, especially on the right, have a trigger to the word socialism. American socialism is the reason why the middle class existed. The lack of American socialism, or the tax on the rich, is the reason why there is no real middle class anymore. In other words, one person cannot support a household. So patriarchy literally does not have a leg to stand on. It's falling apart, and men are freaking the fuck out. Tell me when I'm telling lies. Tell me when I'm telling lies. The man who Jason a dude watching the 49ers football game, I'm sure you all heard of this, unalived his wife because she suggested changing the football game after the 49ers clearly won. Boom. Right in the head. Gone. Stepdaughter. Boom. Right in the head. She's talking. She said what happened. She begged him. No, don't do it. He did it anyway. He didn't do it to his own kids. He only did it to the stepdaughter. Now, men have claimed that they are the more rational since I've been alive. And I'm not rational. I'm a man. I'm learning how to be more self-regulated, emotionally regulated. And it's something that I know that I need to do in order to be relevant in this new world. In order to contribute, because men who think that they're going to just contribute money, bullshit. They can't. Most can't. Most aren't. And they're still expecting women to be subservient to them. Men hold this idea that in a relationship, they need to be in control. If they're not in control, they freak the fuck out. If they're not in control, they start gaslighting. If they're not in control, they can't deal with it. And they dysregulate and freak out like that. Boom. And we're going to see more of that. Yesterday, watching Dean Withers, let me get back to that whole part of the conversation. As I'm watching Dean Withers live and his team try to get through to this young red pill man, this young Trumper, who could see no wrong in Trump for going backstage and seeing people who are not of age nude. He had no right to be there, and yet even Trump said, I'm allowed. There's not a single rule that says he is or was. It was all based on what he wanted to do because there was no consequence. And that's how a lot of rich white men live, believing that what they do lacks consequence. And you're seeing that more and more among men who are not billionaires, who might even be in their basement, doing this all day, playing video games all day. I'm a man. And yet they can't even afford to support their own sorry ass. And they want women to bow down before them. That is happening more and more every day since the pandemic. When men, especially young men, were locked in, when we're all on lockdown, being stuck on TikTok with these algorithms on Facebook, on YouTube, with all these algorithms, forced feed algorithms that will feed you content based on what your attention looks at the most. And you're not even really aware that you're seeing what you're seeing because that's what you've been looking at a lot. But that's how these algorithms work, these closed loop algorithms, which have only been around since about 2013, 2014, and they've only been this sophisticated for the last 5 years and are getting more sophisticated all the time because of AI and soon quantum computing. Quantum computing mixed with AI is going to create a world that we do recognize. Let's not go there right now. The fact of the matter is, men were weaponized, especially young men, especially right-leaning red pill men who are holding on to trad life, who are red pill. And by the way, if you don't know what red pill men are, remember Neo from the Matrix? He took the red pill to escape the Matrix, to escape control. That is what young red pill men think they're doing, that they're escaping the Matrix because women are taking their jobs, because trans people are taking their jobs. Oh no, there are also other qualified people in the world that do not have something dangling between their legs, and even if they do and they don't identify with that, they are still just as or can be more qualified. It has nothing to do with gender. Take gender out of the conversation. A lot of men think that, women want us to go to matriarchy. They want to flip the script. Even though that's not necessarily even what matriarchy really is. It is the co-creation with men and women. So let's go to egalitarianism, right? That's where it's not based on gender, but what you contribute. Based on egalitarianism, if we were to be an egalitarianistic society, and men of patriarchy beliefs, men who think with that patriarchy brain, that because they have something dangling between their legs that they are entitled to, fill in the blank. Especially white men. They feel that they are entitled to fill in the blank. And a lot of men are realizing that the American dream that their daddies and their granddaddies got is not really within their reach anymore, and they're freaking the fuck out. They're realizing, I don't make enough money. I can't buy the White House with the white picket fence, with the big yard and the dog and the nuclear family. I go to work. I come home. Dinner's made. The house is clean. And she's bent over, wet, ready to take it whenever I am. Down to give it. That's how a lot of men still think, and that's what they still want. But to contribute in an egalitarianism or egalitarianistic society, it's not about what's dangling between your legs or isn't. It's not about even how you identify with gender or don't identify with gender at all. It's based on what you can contribute. It's based on how you can grow and be a participant in society. And based on that, men are failing horribly, especially on the right-leaning, especially right-leaning men. Because they are denying, the men who are denying that women are equal, or in many cases superior, are feeling not just insecure, but they're flailing, they're lashing out, oftentimes violently, certainly abusively. Gaslighting is abuse. I'll say it again. Gaslighting is abuse. Gaslighting is low emotional intelligent communication. It lacks emotional intelligence. Men who gaslight lack emotional intelligence. They cannot self-regulate emotionally, chemically, enough to be a healthy participant in a relationship, much less society. Tell me when I'm telling lies. What do you guys think? Because right now, this is kind of a defining moment in America. This is a moment when, men who are holding on to patriarchy, oftentimes abusively and violently, and abusively, I would say that the young man who called into Ding Withers and was denying great culture because he couldn't see his participation in it, those men are irrelevant in society. What are they contributing to the betterment of a community, much less the country? Not much. Do you agree? Disagree? Adamantly one way or the other, and why? Because we need to get on a real track, a real conversation here. I was saying to my girlfriend earlier, here's what I see. Violence. Bloodshed. Not good things. If you look at the picture behind me, holding the big boom boom, a lot of men on the right are very, very well armed. That should mean something to you. Because when men demonstrate this amount of dysregulation, what's next? When things inevitably escalate, and they are inevitably escalating right here, right now, as I'm talking. We have elected a president who openly demeans women, Miss Piggy, openly demeans women on TV, and young men see that. A lot of men who were just growing up in Trump's first presidency saw it then, and they're seeing it now. So they've been exposed to that the majority of their young lives. You don't think that has an impact on their psychology, on their identity, on what they think is right and wrong, on the permissions that they do and don't give themselves, on how they treat people, especially women or men that they think are subservient to them for whatever reason? I had a man tell me that any man who doesn't believe in his like him is below him. How many men do you think, especially of the red pill Republican right-leaning persuasion, who really identify with Trump? And I'm gonna really lean in on that, y'all, that this is a much bigger problem on the right than the left. And again, I'm independent, so don't put me in a box unless she's hot. The fact of the matter is that the right has exhibited far more violence, far more aggression, especially towards women, especially as they're realizing patriarchy does not exist anymore, does not exist the way it did, and it can't. Again, it can't, because American socialism no longer exists. The tax rate on the rich no longer funds a working middle class that a single breadwinner can support a household while a woman stays home, takes care of that house and the family. Those days, like the fruit, are long gone. If you don't know what a long gone is, like lychee. So trying to get back to those days of patriarchy are going to be bloody. I'm going to say it. They're going to get violent because they're not going to be able to get it. And they think someone is to blame besides themselves because they're not self-accountable. They don't have the self-emotional regulation or intelligence to even think that way. That's all I have to say right now. I'd love to hear what you guys think. And let's keep the conversation going.